Today we're taking a look at two very incredible TVs, and to be honest with you, you would be lucky to get either of these TVs in your house. They are that amazing. So the two TVs we'll be talking about today is the Samsung S95B QD OLED on the left here, that is from 2022, and on the right here we have the LG G3 OLED from this year with the new MLA technology. We're going to dive into what separates these TVs and much more, and be sure to stick around to the very end where I will give you my buying advice regarding these two TVs. Is it worth it to splurge on the LG G3, or should you just save money and get the S95B? Well, I'll definitely help you with that decision, and that's a really good starting point for this comparison is the actual price point. Taking a close look at these two TVs and their price tags, right now you could almost get two S95Bs for the price of one LG G3. So is there a huge separation when we're talking about picture quality? Well, the answer is yes and no. It's really a loaded question and I'll have to dive into it quite a bit. But first we need to get into two things that might make or break these TVs for you: build quality and screen uniformity. Now the build quality issue on the S95B has been something that has plagued some S95Bs. I do have one with a bent panel. It is slightly bent at the top. Can you tell by watching the side-by-sides? Can you tell that the top panel is bent here? It is on the left. I cannot tell. So personally, it does not affect me when I am viewing the TV, so it doesn't really bother me at all. Does it affect the resale value? Sure, it does, but at the end of the day, TVs have terrible resale value anyway, so it's not going to impact you that much when you really think about it. And this TV will probably last you quite a bit anyway, so you'll get your money's worth with this TV most likely. And those of you that are worried about any type of internal issues that might creep up, or you're worried about burn-in, you can always add something like an OLED warranty from Best Buy that does cover burn-in, and you'll still be at a much cheaper price than the LG G3s. So I really think that if you're in this 55-inch, 65-inch range, writing off the S95B would be a big mistake. Unless, of course, you just do not like Samsung or the operating system. And the operating system definitely can be a problem, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I do want to say that when we're talking about the LG G3, the build quality on that is fantastic. That said, you may have some uniformity issues with the LG G3. It's not the cleanest panel in the world. The one that I have, I would definitely say that it has some of that dirty screen effect. My panel also had color tinting issues, and other reviewers pointed out they had this as well. You might also not like the typical green push that you get out of the box from the G3 as well, and you can definitely notice it when it's next to a QD OLED, for example, like right here. Some of the black and white footage that I got for you guys, you will see that it has like a green push to it, and that is not typically something I like to see personally, and it does look a little bit worse on camera, but it is noticeable in person as well. So if you ask me, I'm going to notice the uniformity more than I would ever notice a bend in the panel, because like I said, when you watch it straight on, that's not something that bothers me. So if it is slightly bent, does that suck? Yes, that sucks, but is it affecting your viewing? No, your viewing is actually more affected by something that plagues the G3, which is going to be the uniformity issues. On the other hand, the uniformity issues for the S95B, that's not something that I really have ran into a problem with QD OLED yet, and I know that my S95B is super clean, and it is one of the cleanest panels that I've ever seen when it comes to any type of OLED TV. And like I've mentioned, every QD OLED that I've had has had some very clean uniformity, and the whites are just spectacular to look at because of how clean it is. And when you're playing video games, that dirty screen effect that you see when you're playing scrolling games or you're looking through the clouds, that is non-existent almost on most QD OLEDs. And I say almost because maybe there is a slight chance to get that on your QD OLED. I'm not really sure. I haven't heard anybody complain about this yet, so I'm not sure if it's even possible, but I would imagine it is possible because we're talking about uniformity, the panel lottery. It always seems to be a thing, so I'm sure there's some dirty QD OLEDs out there. I just haven't ran into one yet. And on the flip side of that, I can't say that I've ever ran into a clean OLED panel or a clean LCD panel. So yeah, QD OLED definitely has the advantage when we're talking about uniformity. So what about the OS, the experience with Tizen OS? Is it as bad as everybody says? It's pretty bad. It's honestly not the greatest experience, but again, WebOS isn't anything perfect either. Honestly, for both of these TVs, I would suggest getting a third-party device for your streaming. That's going to eliminate a lot of the headaches. Now, scrolling through the menus and getting through the menus is fairly easy on both TVs, and I don't have a problem with either when it comes to that. It's really switching inputs on the S95B. That is kind of a pain to do, where that's not an issue on the LG G3. I also really like the quick menu on the LG G3 as well. I think they have a really big advantage there. Now, when you're talking about sound really quickly, I think that the S95B has pretty good TV sound out of the box, and the G3 is definitely nothing to write home about. Before I move on to the next topic, if you guys are enjoying this video or you're finding it helpful at all, could you please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button? This helps the channel grow so much, and it helps spread it out to more viewers to help them make a better buying decision on their next TV. And if you guys need any questions answered regarding this comparison or any other TV comparisons, don't hesitate to comment below with your questions. I will make sure that I give you an answer as soon as I can. Thank you guys so much. Now let's talk about the next category, which is picture quality. Picture quality on both of these TVs. Wow. Wow. I can't say that enough when you're talking about both of these TVs. Probably the best TVs that you can buy on the market right now is either one of these MLA OLEDs like the G3 or one of these QD OLEDs like the S95B, the S95C, the S90C. I think like select all, yes, you would be happy. Does one have a significant advantage in a certain category? Yes and no. There are going to be alternating scenes where one is going to win the scene more than the other, and it's going to vary from content to content. In reality, this is not going to be something that I think you should concern yourself with. So I would find the one with the least amount of cons and go with the features that you really like from the TV. I think that's the best way to go about doing it. So one of those advantages that you will see is that the G3 definitely will have the advantage when it comes to the brighter scenes. You will see in high brightness scenes that the G3 can get brighter than the S95B, and it can get there in a convincing fashion. But this is something that you will really only see if you use the home cinema modes like Cinema Home, for example, or something just with the dynamic tone mapping turned on. Otherwise, you're not going to see a huge separation with these TVs in mind. The S95B can get just as bright as the G3 in a lot of the scenes when we're talking about being in their most accurate mode, like the filmmaker modes, for example, with no dynamic tone mapping on the TVs. Now, when you are in these more accurate modes, you do see the TVs just trade blows back and forth. Sometimes the S95B is brighter than the G3, and sometimes the G3 is brighter than the S95B. It's really going to depend on the content that you feed it and the TV's tone mapping algorithm. There's a lot to go into it, but just know that it does trade blows. Much is the same case with the S95C and the G3. I felt like it was almost the same identical example when you are in the more accurate modes. Again, I have to stress, if you want to see the G3 separate from the S95B, you'll have to be outside of the accurate modes, and you'll have to be in something like a vivid mode or a cinema home, for example. Now, the G3 is the more capable TV in terms of overall pure brightness. But when it comes to color brightness, the S95B is the winner there, as you will see more bright, vibrant colors be displayed properly on the S95B, where the G3 will struggle with it at very high brightness levels. So if you're after color brightness and that's your main objective, it's going to have to be QD OLED that you choose over the LG G3. That said, MLA and the color boosting processing helps the G3 a lot with color brightness, but still, it does not compare to a QD OLED. However, you could make the argument that this won't bother most users because they won't know what they're missing. If they see the scene, they might think that's what the scene is actually supposed to look like on the LG G3. So this wouldn't be a complete side-by-side without a mention of gaming, and gaming is a really big decision-making point when you're talking about the G3 and the S95B. Now, in order to get a really great gaming performance out of the G3, you will have to use the auto low latency mode, which is called ALLM, that you have to toggle on, something that actually supports ALLM in your console menu. If your console does not support ALLM, you will be forced into game mode in order to get a low latency experience that is actually playable. Now, the problem with this is that when you are in game mode, you are getting a reduced brightness level and a reduced color brightness level overall, and this is not something that is very appealing, because when you see the TV outside of game mode and then you flip it into game mode, it is a very discouraging experience, to say the least. I really feel like this is an oversight from LG, and I do think that it can get fixed in a firmware update, but until it does, I have to keep calling it out, and I have to keep making it known, especially at the price tag that the TV is at, especially if you are going to be looking at this as a gaming TV, when it is regarded by a lot of people as the best gaming TV out there, when in reality, it does not even come close to deserving that title. So I just want to make sure everybody is knowing that the G3 is an incomplete gaming experience, and it's not going to be the best of its ability unless you are in auto low latency mode. On the other hand, the S95B in game mode is actually pretty good, and it is something that I like a lot, especially when you are having the game HDR toggled off. Now, don't get this confused. I'm not saying turn HDR off to play the S95B. There's actually a settings menu toggle that is called Game HDR that you will toggle off, and I think it's off by default. So if you have that off, you will be getting a very bright, punchy game mode. And if you want something that is a little bit more accurate, then you are going to want to turn Game HDR on, though it will undertrack the highlights just a little bit. And when you compare that to the G3, then the G3 will look a little bit brighter in those highlights, and that will only be once the TV is in the ALLM function for the G3. Now, I did compare them both in game mode, and then I compared them in game mode compared to the ALLM. And if brightness is what you're going for, when you have ALLM engaged on the G3, it is definitely going to be the brighter of the two. But if you are somebody who needs game mode because you want the lowest latency possible, then the S95B was the brighter of the two. So that was just something that I noticed, and you could probably see it in the footage that I have captured. So hopefully that will help you make a decision on which to get if you're going primarily for gaming. So look, the LG G3 is a really amazing TV. And honestly, it is probably the best OLED TV that LG has ever produced. But when you look at the core picture quality of the TV, and you see them side by side, and you see that the G3 and the S95B are trading blows, but the S95B is at almost half the price of the G3. It is kind of an eye-opening experience and a no-brainer to me to suggest that you get the S95B over the G3 while it is still available. Now, of course, if you want the 77-inch version, you're going to have to look at the S90C, where I will say the S90C is recommended over the G3 as well, and I'll have a full comparison of those two TVs so you can see the difference. And remember, with the 77-inch version of the S90C, you are getting QD OLED 2.0, but overall, this comparison was easy for me because of the price. So yeah, get the TV that's half the price. I feel like that's common sense. I feel like that's a no-brainer. And I will always pick the TV that is significantly cheaper if the picture quality is more or less the same. And before you think that I'm picking on LG here, I'm not. I'm also saying the same thing when it comes to the S95C. I think that you should absolutely just buy the S95B over the S95C. But of course, there is no 77-inch size. So that is just another story, and you'll have to just pick between the S95C, the S90C, and the G3 because there is no S95B in that category. If you found this comparison helpful, please hit the like button, consider subscribing, and consider using my affiliate links when you're buying your next TV. Thank you guys so much for watching. Check out this next side-by-side right here if you want to keep watching comparison videos.